You are freezing, the year is 1854. You feel the ice inside your lungs. Your survival depends on a single lump of coal. One man feasts on roasted goose while his servant dies of a broken heart and a frozen bed. This is not a fairy tale. This is your life in Victorian London. The rich buy warmth with gold. The poor pay with their lives. You see the carriage splash slush on a child with no shoes. Why did the rich live while the poor turned to stone in the streets? Your blood runs cold because you realize how close you are to the edge. Rich vs poor in Victorian winters, who survived, and why is the story of your own endurance? The snow falls in heavy grey sheets over the Thames. It is 1867. A thick fog chokes the gas lamps. You are Thomas. You walk the slick cobbles of East London. Your coat is thin. Your boots have holes. You carry a small bundle of dry sticks. Across the city, the windows of the grand houses glow with orange light. Thick velvet curtains keep the frost away. You hear the muffled sound of a piano. You smell wood smoke and cinnamon. You look at your blue hands. The wind cuts through your skin. You think of your sister waiting in a room with no fire. The ice grows on the inside of your window tonight. You move slow. You breathe soft. The winter is a predator. It hunts the weak. Welcome to our quiet corner of history. I am glad you are here. Where in the world are you resting tonight? What time is it for you? Please find your favorite blanket. Wrap it tight around your shoulders. Take a slow deep breath. Let your muscles go soft. Settle deep into your bed. If you find peace here, please subscribe and leave a comment. It helps our small community grow. Like the video to keep the fire burning. Let your mind drift back to the frozen streets of the past. The cold is a physical weight on your chest. It is December in the year 1860. You are Thomas. You stand on the corner of a narrow street in the East End of London. The sky is the color of a bruised plum. Darkness falls before 4 in the afternoon. You watch the breath leave your mouth in thick white clouds. It looks like ghosts escaping your body. You wrap your arms around your ribs. Your coat is a hand, made down from a man who died of the fever. It is too large in the shoulders and too thin in the chest. The wool is scratchy and damp. It smells of old soot and wet dog. You feel the wind find the gaps in the fabric. It licks at your skin like a blade of ice. The cobblestones under your feet are slick with black ice. This is not the clean white snow of a greeting card. This is the winter of the poor. It is a season of grey slush and frozen mud. You hear the iron wheels of a carriage in the distance. The sound is sharp and metallic against the frozen air. You move your toes inside your boots. You cannot feel them anymore. They are numb blocks of wood. You know this is dangerous. When the feeling goes away, the frostbite begins its work. You look down at the gutter. A dead sparrow lies there. Its tiny feet are curled toward the sky. It froze where it sat on a low stone ledge. You wonder if you look like that sparrow to the people in the carriages. You are just a small shape in the gloom. You turn toward the direction of your home. Home is a single room on the 4th floor of a crumbling brick tenement. The walls are thin as paper. The windows do not fit their frames. You walk past a shop window. Inside, a single candle burns. It shows a row of stale bread loaves. They look like stones. You have 3 copper coins in your pocket. They are cold against your thigh. You must choose tonight. You buy a small loaf of bread, or you buy a handful of coal. You cannot have both. If you eat, you freeze. If you stay warm, you starve. This is the math of the Victorian winter. It is a simple sum with a cruel answer. You pass a group of men huddling near a stable. They lean against the brick to catch the warmth of the horses inside. The smell of manure and hay is sweet and warm. One man looks at you. His eyes are sunken into his skull. He does not speak. He does not have the energy for words. Every breath is a struggle to keep the heart beating. You keep walking. The wind picks up. It whistles through the narrow alleys. It sounds like a woman screaming. You reach your door. The wood is swollen with damp. You have to heave your shoulder against it to get inside. The hallway is darker than the street. It smells of cabbage and wet plaster. You climb the stairs. They groan under your weight. Each step is a mountain. Your legs are heavy. Your blood feels thick like syrup. You reach the top floor. You open your door. The room is silent. It is colder inside than outside because the air does not move. Your sister Mary sits on a wooden crate. She has a thin blanket over her head. She looks like a statue. She does not turn when you enter. She saves her warmth. You place your hand on her shoulder. She shivers. It is a violent shake that starts in her spine. You look at the fireplace. It is empty. The suit is cold. You look at the 3 coins in your hand. You make your choice. You leave the room again. You go back into the biting wind. You find the coal cellar at the end of the lane. He is a man covered in black dust. His eyes are white circles in a dark face. You give him your coins. He gives you a small burlap sack. It is light. It will last 4 hours if you are careful. You carry it back like it is a bag of diamonds. You return to the room. You break a small chair in the corner. You use the wood to start a tiny flame. You add 2 lumps of coal. You watch the orange light dance on the walls. It does not reach the corners. Mary moves toward the heat. She holds her hands over the flickering fire. Her skin is translucent. You can see the blue veins in her wrists. You do not speak. You both watch the coal turn from black to glowing red. This is survival. This is the victory of the night. You will be hungry tomorrow. But tonight, you are not the sparrow in the gutter. You are alive. The fire is a small, angry eye in the darkness of the room. It eats the coal with a soft hiss. You sit on the floor next to Mary. The floorboards are cold enough to ache through your trousers. You lean your back against the stone of the hearth. It is the only place where the air does not feel like a wet shroud. You watch the smoke rise. It twists and turns before it disappears into the chimney. You think about the world outside this room. You think about the great houses in the West End. There, the walls are covered in silk. The floors are hidden under thick wool carpets. In those houses, winter is a decoration. It is something to look at through a window while drinking hot chocolate. To you, winter is a thief. It steals the heat from your skin. It steals the strength from your muscles. You look at the burlap sack. It is nearly empty. You must make this heat last. You reach out and move a glowing coal with a stick. You move it to the center of the pile. You want every spark to count. Mary closes her eyes. Her face is pale in the firelight. She looks peaceful for a moment. But then her chest hitches. She coughs. It is a dry, hacking sound. It echoes in the empty room. You know that cough. It is the sound of the damp air settling in the lungs. In the Victorian winter, a cough is a shadow of death. You have no medicine. You have no honey. You only have the heat of the coal. You reach for her hand. It is thin. The bones feel like the twigs you found in the street. You rub her fingers between your palms. You try to give her your own warmth. You feel the pulse in her wrist. It is fast and light. You realize that the rich do not just have more money. They have more time. They have more years. A man in a mansion might live to be 70. A man in this alley is lucky to see 40. The winter decides who stays and who goes. You hear a noise from the floor below. It is a baby crying. The sound is thin and weak. It stops suddenly. The silence that follows is heavier than the noise. You do not want to think about what that silence means. You turn your focus back to the flames. The coal is turning to grey ash at the edges. You feel a pang of hunger in your stomach. It is a sharp, twisting pain. It feels like a claw. You have not eaten since yesterday morning. Your stomach has shrunk to the size of a fist. You try to swallow, but your throat is dry. You think about the shops on the main road. You saw a window filled with hams and pies this morning. The crusts were golden and flaked with butter. The meat was pink and juicy. The sight made your mouth water so much it hurt. But a single pie costs more than your coal. You are a prisoner of your own poverty. You look at the window. The frost has grown thicker. It looks like white ferns climbing the glass. It is beautiful in a way that feels like a threat. It is the ice marking its territory. You know that if the fire goes out, the frost will come inside. It will crawl over the blankets. It will settle on your skin. You stand up to stretch your legs. They feel stiff and brittle. You walk to the window and scrape a small hole in the frost with your fingernail. You look out at the street. A lone gas lamp flickers in the wind. The light is weak. It struggles to push back the dark. You see a figure moving below. It is the night watchman. He is wrapped in a thick wool cape. He carries a lantern. He moves slow. He is checking the locks on the warehouses. Those warehouses are full of grain and cloth. They are full of things that could save 1,000 lives. But they are locked behind iron bars. The law protects the property, but it does not protect the person. You feel a flash of heat in your blood. It is not from the fire. It is anger. It is the only thing that keeps you from giving up. You return to the fire. You add the last 2 lumps of coal. This is the end of your supply. You watch them catch. You know that in 2 hours, the room will be grey and cold again. You lie down next to Mary. You pull the thin blanket over both of you. You hold each other close. Your bodies are the only heaters left. You listen to the wind. It has grown louder. It rattles the loose tiles on the roof. It feels like the house is shivering with you. You try to think of summer. You try to remember the feeling of the sun on your neck. You try to remember the smell of dry grass. But the memory is fading. The winter is too loud. It fills your head. You close your eyes. You pray for the sun to rise early. You pray for the coal to burn slow. You are a grain of sand in a great machine. The machine does not care if you are crushed. But you are still here. You are still breathing. That is your only rebellion. You fall into a light, fitful sleep. You dream of a fireplace as big as a room. You dream of a bed with white sheets and a mountain of quilts. In the dream, you are warm. In the dream, you are safe. But then the wind whistles through the crack in the door. The dream shatters. You wake up to the smell of dying embers. The room is dim. The orange glow is fading to a dull red. The chill is returning. It starts at your feet and moves up your legs. You hold Mary tighter. You can feel her heart beating against your chest. It is a small, steady drum. It says, "I am here, I am here, I am here." You stay awake. You watch the last spark die. You wait for the morning. You wait for the light that brings no heat. You are Thomas. You are a survivor of the Victorian night. The grey light of morning is not a gift. It is a cold revelation. You open your eyes to a room that feels like a tomb. The fire is a pile of white ash. It looks like the bones of the night. You move your arm and hear the frost on your blanket crackle. It is a thin, crystalline sheet that formed while you slept. Your breath comes out in a puff of silver. You look at Mary. Her face is the color of milk. She is still asleep, but her brow is furrowed. Even in rest, she is fighting the cold. You sit up and your joints pop like dry twigs. Every muscle in your back is tight. You feel like a piece of iron that has been left out in the rain to rust. You stand up and the air hits your skin. It is a physical blow. You go to the wash basin, but the water is a solid block of ice. You cannot even wash the soot from your face. You look at the empty coal sack. It is a limp, hollow thing on the floor. You have no money left. You have no food. You have nothing but the clothes on your back and the strength in your arms. You must go out. You must find work, or you must find a way to get a few scraps of coal. The city is waking up around you. You hear the heavy thud of work boots on the stairs. You hear the shouting of vendors in the distance. The world does not stop because you are freezing. It moves faster. It grinds on. You lean over and tuck the blanket tighter around Mary. You whisper that you will be back. You do not know if it is a promise or a lie. You step out of the room and into the hallway. The air in the tenement is thick with the smell of poverty. It is a mix of unwashed bodies, damp wool, and the sharp tang of gin. People drink to forget the cold. They drink until their blood feels warm, even if it is killing them. You pass the door on the second floor. A woman stands there. She is holding a small bundle. Her eyes are red and swollen. She does not look at you. She is looking at the wall. You know what is in that bundle. The winter has taken another one. You hurry past. You cannot carry her grief on top of your own. You reach the street. The sun is a pale, sickly disk behind the clouds. It gives no heat. The slush from yesterday has frozen into jagged ridges. It trips you as you walk. You head toward the docks. The docks are where the work is. If a ship has come in despite the ice in the river, there will be crates to move. There will be heavy lifting. You reach the iron gates of the wharf. A crowd of men is already there. There are hundreds of them. They look like a sea of dark coats and flat caps. They are all leaning forward. They are all staring at the foreman. The foreman is a large man with a red face and a thick fur collar. He looks well fed. He looks like he slept in a bed with 3 blankets. He holds a stack of brass tickets in his hand. Each ticket is a day of work. Each ticket is a meal. The foreman climbs onto a wooden crate. He looks over the crowd with contempt. He sees the desperation in your eyes. He knows he owns you for the next 10 hours. He begins to point. You. Not you. You. The men scream, they push. They wave their hands. It is a riot of the hungry. You push forward. You use your shoulders. You find a gap in the crowd. You reach out your hand. You try to look strong. You try to hide the fact that your stomach is eating itself. The foreman's eyes pass over you. He pauses. He looks at your thin frame. You hold your breath. You pray to a God you haven't spoken to in years. He tosses a ticket. It flies through the air. It glints in the pale light. A dozen hands reach for it. You jump. You feel a fist hit your ear. You feel a boot stomp on your foot. But your fingers close around the metal. It is cold. It is hard. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever felt. You have been chosen. You are led to a massive black ship. It is coated in ice. The ropes look like glass snakes. You spend the next 6 hours carrying heavy sacks of grain from the hold to the warehouse. Each sack weighs 100 pounds. The burlap scratches your neck. The dust gets into your throat and makes you cough. Your muscles scream. Your heart hammers against your ribs like a trapped bird. But you do not stop. If you stop, you are sent away. If you stop, you lose the ticket. You watch the other men. One man, older than the rest, drops his sack. He falls to his knees. He does not get up. The foreman shouts. 2 men pick him up and drag him to the side like a piece of trash. A new man is brought in from the gate. The machine keeps turning. By noon, your hands are bleeding. The salt from the grain gets into the cuts. It burns. You welcome the pain. Pain means you are still alive. You are given a break for 10 minutes. You are given a cup of thin, watery soup and a crust of hard bread. The soup is mostly grease and salt. It is the best thing you have ever tasted. It spreads a small glow of warmth in your center. You finish it in 3 gulps. You wish there was more. You look at the sky. The clouds are turning darker. Another storm is coming. You can feel it in the pressure in your ears. The wind is shifting to the north. You finish the day's work as the sun disappears. Your body is a single dull ache. The foreman takes your ticket and gives you a shilling. It is a small silver coin. It represents 10 hours of agony. It represents life for you and Mary. You walk away from the docks. Your legs are shaking. You pass a pub. The windows are steaming. You hear laughter. You see the reflection of a massive fire in the hearth. For a second, you want to go in. You want to spend the shilling on a glass of ale and a seat by the fire. You want to be warm for 1 hour. But you think of Mary. You think of the empty fireplace in your room. You turn your back on the warmth. You find a different coal cellar. This one is closer to home. You buy a larger sack this time. You also buy a small piece of bacon and 2 potatoes. You carry the weight of the coal and the food. It is heavy, but it feels light. You are a provider. You have beaten the winter for 1 more day. You reach your tenement. You climb the stairs. Your breath is heavy. You open the door. The room is dark. Mary is still under the blanket. She is shivering so hard the crate rattles. You do not waste time. You start the fire. You don't use the wood from the furniture this time. You use the high-quality coal. It takes hold. The blue flames lick the black stones. You slice the bacon. The smell fills the room. It is a rich, salty scent. Mary opens her eyes. She smells it too. She sits up. She looks at the pan. You see a spark of life return to her eyes. You cook the potatoes in the fat of the bacon. You give her the largest share. You sit together by the fire. The room begins to warm. The frost on the window begins to melt. It turns into long tears of water that run down the glass. You eat in silence. You are too tired to talk. You feel the warmth of the food moving through your veins. You feel the heat of the fire on your face. You look at the fire and you realize the truth. The rich do not survive because they are better. They survive because they are buffered. They have layers of coal and meat and silk between them and the truth of the world. You have no layers. You are skin and bone against the teeth of the gale, but you are still here. You survived the docks. You survived the foreman. You survived the hunger. You lean back against the wall. The stone is starting to hold the heat. You close your eyes. You know that tomorrow you must do it all again. The winter is long. It is only December. There are months of ice ahead. But for this moment, you are winning. The fire is bright. Your belly is full. You are Thomas, and you have claimed another night from the dark. The warmth in your belly is a fleeting ghost. By the time the bells of St. Paul's strike midnight, the bacon and potatoes are a distant memory. The room remains quiet, but the air is changing. You can feel it in the way the wind whistles through the floorboards. It is a higher pitch now. It is the sound of a killing frost. You look at the fire. You have been careful, but the coal is half gone. You realize that to survive a Victorian winter, you cannot just work hard. You have to be a strategist of sparks. Every inch of heat must be captured. You pull the heavy wooden crate closer to the hearth. You move Mary so her back is almost touching the stone. You are creating a fortress of warmth. You look at your hands in the firelight. They are stained with coal dust and the grease of the bacon. The cuts from the grain sacks have stopped bleeding, but they are red and angry. You know that if they fester, you are finished. A man with a rot in his hand cannot work the docks. A man who cannot work the docks is a man who dies. You find a small scrap of clean cloth in a drawer. It is a piece of your mother's old shawl. You wrap it tightly around your palm. You use your teeth to tie the knot. You feel the pulse thumping in your hand. It is a rhythmic reminder of the pressure you are under. Mary looks at you. Her eyes are wide. She is not coughing as much, but she is very still. She asks if you saw the carriages today. You tell her about the shiny black wood and the horses with blankets over their backs. You describe the people inside. You tell her about the silk top hats and the ladies with fur muffs. You do not tell her about the contempt in the foreman's eyes. You do not tell her about the man who fell and was dragged away like a broken chair. You want her world to be small and safe, even if it is a lie. You want her to believe that there is a world where people are not cold. The night deepens. This is the time when the city belongs to the ice. On the streets below, the water in the gutters has frozen solid. The rats have retreated deep into the sewers to find the warmth of the filth. You hear a sound from the roof. It is the cracking of the beams. The cold is so intense that the wood is shrinking. It sounds like a gunshot. You jump, your heart racing. You look at the ceiling. You wonder if the roof will hold. Everything in this tenement is old. Everything is rotting. The only thing holding it together is the cold itself, freezing the damp wood into a single mass. You think about the great stink of the previous decade and how the winter was the only thing that brought relief from the smell of the river. But now, the river is a different kind of enemy. If the Thames freezes over, The coal ships cannot come in. If the coal ships stop, the price of a shilling's worth of fuel will double. You are at the mercy of the weather in a way a modern person could never understand. You are a sailor on a ship made of brick, and the ocean is the frozen air. You decide to try and sleep. You need your strength for the morning. You lie down on the hard floor. You put your head on your arm, but sleep does not come easy. You listen to the sounds of the building. You hear the heavy breathing of the family in the next room. They have 5 children in a space no bigger than yours. You hear the father snoring. It is a wet, rattling sound. You know he has the lung fever. He will not last the winter. You feel a wave of guilt. You have bacon in your stomach, and he has nothing. But in this city, guilt is a luxury. If you give away your heat, you die. If you give away your food, you die. The Victorian winter turns men into animals. It strips away the kindness until only the bone of survival is left. You close your eyes and try to imagine the spring. You try to remember the smell of the flower girls' baskets in Covent Garden. You try to remember the feeling of the sun being a friend rather than a distant stranger. But the cold keeps pulling you back. It is a hand on your throat. You feel the draft coming from under the door. You get up and take your thin coat. You roll it up and shove it into the gap at the bottom of the door. It helps a little. You return to the fire. You add one more lump of coal, just one. You watch the edges turn gold. You pray to the coal. You pray to the fire. You are Thomas, and you are the guardian of the spark. As the hours crawl toward 4 in the morning, the coldest part of the night arrives. The moisture from your breath has turned into a fine white powder on the blanket. You feel a deep ache in your bones. It is a cold that reaches past the muscle. It is a cold that wants to stop your heart. You sit up and begin to move your arms. You slap your shoulders. You keep the blood moving. You cannot let lethargy take you. You have seen men fall asleep in doorways and never wake up. They look peaceful, but they are just frozen meat. You will not be peaceful. You will be restless. You will be alive. You look at Mary. She is shivering in her sleep. You take off your waistcoat. You are now just in your thin shirt. You lay the waistcoat over her feet. The cold hits your chest instantly. It feels like a sheet of glass pressed against your skin. You grit your teeth. You can handle it. You are the older brother. You are the wall between her and the dark. You sit there in the dim light, watching the last of the fire. You wait for the sun. You wait for the next struggle. You are a Victorian survivor, and you are not done yet. The morning of the 3rd day arrives not with a sunrise, but with a thickening of the gloom. You scrape the frost from the window and see a world transformed into a white nightmare. A blizzard has descended upon London. The air is no longer just cold. It is a swirling wall of needles that blinds the eyes and chokes the lungs. You know what this means. The docks will be closed. The ships will be ghost masts in the fog. The foreman will not be handing out brass tickets today. You look at the hearth. The last lump of coal you added at 4 in the morning has crumbled into a pile of grey dust. There is no more heat. There is no more bacon. You are back to the beginning. You look at Mary. She is awake now. She does not ask for food. She does not ask for the fire. She only looks at the empty grate with a hollow stare. You realize that hunger has a specific sound. It is a silence that rings in the ears. You feel a desperate energy rising in your chest. You cannot stay in this room and watch her fade. You must find something to burn or something to sell. You look around the room. There is nothing left. You have already burned the broken chair. The table belongs to the landlord. If you burn that, you will be thrown into the street before the sun sets. You look at your boots. They are thin, but they are yours. You look at the small wooden crucifix on the wall that belonged to your mother. It is made of polished oak. It would burn for maybe 10 minutes. You turn away from it. You decide to go to the markets. Perhaps a crate has fallen from a wagon. Perhaps a merchant is feeling the weight of the Christmas spirit. You wrap your feet in scraps of burlap over your boots to keep the snow from the holes. You step out into the hallway. The cold here is sharp enough to draw blood. You hear a low moaning from the room next door. It is the sound of the man with the lung fever. His breath is a wet, heavy labor. You hurry down the stairs. You reach the street and are nearly knocked over by the wind. The snow is already ankle deep. It is dry and powdery, drifting into high mounds against the doors of the shops. The city is eerily quiet. The usual roar of the iron wheels is muffled by the white blanket. You walk toward the center of the city, toward the shops of the wealthy. You pass a church. The doors are locked. The stone saints on the facade are covered in hoods of snow. You reach the main thoroughfare. Here, a few carriages are still moving, the horses struggling to find footing on the slick stones. You see a man in a heavy fur coat stepping out of a shop. He carries a box tied with red ribbon. He looks at you for a split second. His eyes are full of a strange fear. It is the fear of a man who sees a ghost. To him, you are a reminder of how fragile his own comfort is. He quickly turns away and climbs into his carriage. The door shuts with a heavy, expensive thud. You find a spot near a bakery. The smell of hot yeast and sugar is a physical torture. It makes your stomach cramp so hard you have to lean against the brick wall. You watch the back door. A young boy no older than 12 comes out to sweep the step. He is wearing a clean apron and a thick wool hat. He looks well fed. You move toward him. You find your voice. It is a raspy, broken thing. You ask if there are any scraps. You ask for the burnt crusts or the floor sweepings. The boy looks at you with a mix of pity and disgust. He tells you to move on before the master sees you. He says they don't give to beggars. You are not a beggar. You are a worker. You tell him this. You tell him you worked the docks until the storm came. The boy does not care. He closes the door and turns the iron bolt. You stand in the snow, the wind whipping your thin coat around your legs. You feel a darkness in your mind. The anger from the night before is back, but it is colder now. It is a focused, sharp thing. You look at the alleyway behind the bakery. You see a stack of wooden crates used for flour. They are wet, but they are wood. They are heat. You look around. The street is empty. The snow provides a veil. You move quickly. You grab the top crate. The wood is heavy and splintered. You tuck it under your arm and run. You do not look back. Your heart is thumping against your ribs. You feel like a criminal, but you also feel a strange surge of life. You are fighting back. You are not letting the winter win. You navigate the back alleys, taking a long route to avoid any constables. The snow is falling harder now. You can barely see 2 feet in front of you. You lose your way for a moment near a tan yard. The smell of rotting hides and chemicals is nauseating, but it means you are close to home. You reach your tenement. You are gasping for air. Your lungs feel like they are filled with broken glass. You climb the stairs, clutching the wooden crate to your chest. You burst into the room. Mary looks up, startled. You don't say a word. You take a heavy stone you keep for this purpose and begin to smash the crate into smaller pieces. The sound of the wood snapping is the best music you have heard all day. You build the fire again. You use a few pages from an old newspaper you found in the hallway to catch the spark. The wood is damp, so it smokes a lot. It makes your eyes water and your throat itch, but soon a small orange flame begins to eat the pine. The room fills with the smell of burning wood and the acrid scent of the ink on the newspaper. You sit by the fire and hold your hands so close to the flame that your skin begins to sting. You don't care. You want the pain. You want to know that the heat is real. Mary comes over and sits beside you. She puts her head on your shoulder. You are both covered in the soot of the room and the snow of the street. You are 2 small points of life in a city that is turning into a glacier. You realize that you have become a thief to stay alive. You wonder what you will have to become tomorrow. The blizzard continues to howl outside. It sounds like a pack of wolves circling the building. You look at the wood from the crate. It will not last as long as the coal. It burns fast and bright. You have maybe 3 hours of peace. You look at Mary and you see a small smile on her face as she watches the flames. It breaks your heart. A bit of stolen wood should not be a cause for joy. You realize that the Victorian winter is a filter. It filters out the weak, the old, the poor, and the unlucky. You are still in the sieve. You are still being shaken. You close your eyes and listen to the wood crackle. You are Thomas, and you have survived the morning of the blizzard. The smoke from the flour crate is thick and white. It does not rise quickly. It lingers in the middle of the room like a heavy curtain. You cough and the sound is wet in your chest. The wood is pine. It is full of resin. It pops and spits sparks onto the floorboards. You have to stay awake to watch them. If a spark catches the dry rot in the floor, the whole tenement will go up like a torch. You look at the fire and realize you are trading your lungs for your life. The air is hard to swallow, but the alternative is the frost that is currently turning the glass in the window into a sheet of solid white marble. You can no longer see the street. You are alone in a box of stone and shadows. You look at Mary. Her eyes are half closed. She is breathing in the smoke too. Her face is smudged with black soot. She looks like a coal miner. You feel a deep sense of shame. You are her protector. You are her older brother. Yet here you sit, in a room filled with toxic clouds, having stolen a crate just to keep her fingers from falling off. You wonder if the rich feel shame when they look at their fires. Do they think of the men who dug the coal? Do they think of the children who crawled through the narrow seams in the earth to fetch it? No. To them, heat is a right. To you, heat is a crime. The blizzard shows no signs of stopping. You hear the wind slamming against the brickwork. It feels like the house is being hit by a giant fist. You hear a crash from the street. A chimney pot has fallen. It shatters on the cobbles with a sound like a bone breaking. You realize that no one is coming for you. There is no charity in a storm like this. The soup kitchens are closed because the soup has frozen in the pots. The churches are cold. The world has shrunk to the 3 feet of space around this dying fire. You reach into your pocket and find a small crust of bread you saved from your break at the docks. It is hard as a stone. It is covered in lint and dust. You hold it over the fire to soften it. You break the crust in 2. You give the larger half to Mary. She takes it with a hand that shakes. She chews slowly. Her jaw muscles are thin. You eat your piece. It tastes of smoke and old grain. It does not stop the hunger. It only wakes it up. Your stomach begins to growl. It is a loud, angry sound. You try to ignore it. You try to think of something else. You think of the great exhibition. You were a small boy then. You remember the Crystal Palace. You remember the giant trees kept under glass. It was a world where humans had conquered nature. But now, nature is taking its revenge. The glass of the Crystal Palace would shatter in a wind like this. The trees would freeze and die. The illusion of progress is gone. There is only the ice. The fire begins to die down. The pine burns fast. It does not have the staying power of coal. You look at the remaining pieces of wood. You have enough for 1 more hour. After that, the room will return to the temperature of the street. You feel a sense of dread. The darkness is coming back. You look at the room. Is there anything else? The wooden crate that serves as a chair is already gone. The shelf on the wall is too high to reach without a ladder. You look at the floorboards. They are thick oak. If you could pry one up, it would burn for a long time. But you have no tools. You have only your bleeding hands. You hear a knock at the door. It is not a strong knock. It is a soft, rhythmic thumping. You stand up. Your legs feel like they are made of lead. You walk to the door. You hesitate. In the winter, a knock at the door is rarely good news. It is the landlord looking for rent. It is the constable looking for a thief. It is a neighbor looking for a handout you cannot give. You open the door a crack. It is the woman from the second floor, the one who was holding the bundle earlier. She is standing there in a thin cotton dress. She has no shawl. Her skin is a terrifying shade of blue. She holds out a small copper kettle. She does not speak. She cannot. Her jaw is locked with the cold. She just looks at your fire. You look at the kettle. You look at her. You know what she wants. She wants hot water. She wants a moment of warmth before the end. You look at your fire. You look at the small pile of wood left. If you help her, your fire will die faster. If you turn her away, she might not make it back down the stairs. You feel the weight of the choice. In the Victorian winter, mercy is an expensive thing. It costs you your own survival. You reach out and take the kettle. You don't say anything. You move the pot of water onto the dying embers. The woman stands in your doorway. She does not come in. She is too polite, or perhaps too far gone. She watches the steam begin to rise from the spout. It is a tiny white plume. It is the only sign of hope in the building. When the water is hot, you hand the kettle back. Her fingers touch yours. They feel like ice. They don't feel like human skin at all. She nods her head once. She turns and disappears into the black hallway. You close the door and lean against it. You feel a strange sense of peace. You have very little, but you shared it. You are still a man. The winter has not turned you into a beast yet. You return to the fire. You add the last pieces of the flour crate. You sit down next to Mary. She has fallen asleep again. Her breathing is shallow. You pull the blanket over her head. You decide you will not sleep. You will watch the light until it is gone. You will be the witness to the night. You look at the shadows on the wall. They look like giants dancing. You realize that the rich and the poor are both watching the same storm. But for the rich, the storm is a story they will tell tomorrow. For you, the storm is the only story there is. You are Thomas. You are a man of the East End. You are the fire, keeper of the fourth floor. The fire sinks into the ash. The red glow fades to a dull brown. The cold begins its march back across the floor. It climbs the legs of the crate. It touches your shins. You don't flinch. You stay still. You listen to the silence of the snow. It is the loudest thing you have ever heard. You wait for the first light of day. You wait for the chance to fight again. You are not dead yet. The ice has not claimed you. You are a Victorian survivor. The fourth morning arrives with a silence so deep it feels like the world has stopped breathing. You open your eyes and see that the air in the room is no longer grey. It is white. The blizzard has buried the first floor of the tenement. You look at the window and realize the snow has reached halfway up the glass on the fourth floor. The drifts are mountains. You are trapped. You are in a cage of ice. You reach out to touch Mary. She is cold. Not the cold of a person who has been outside, but the deep, internal cold of a body that has run out of fuel. You shake her. You call her name. Your voice is a dry rattle. She moans and her eyelids flutter. She is still with you. But she is fading. You feel a panic that is hotter than any fire. You look at the empty grate. There is not a single spark left. The woman with the kettle is gone. The flour crate is gone. You are in a room with nothing but a bed of cold ash. You realize that if you do not get heat into this room in the next hour, Mary will not wake up again. You stand up and your head swims. The hunger is now a dull, heavy thud in your skull. You look at the door. You try to open it, but the snow has pressed against the building so hard that the frame has shifted. You throw your shoulder against the wood. It does not budge. You are buried alive in a tomb of brick and frost. You look around the room with the eyes of a wolf. You see the floorboards. You see the ceiling beams. But you have no tools. Then you see the crucifix. It is the oak cross. It is the only thing left of your mother. It has hung on that nail since the day she died of the cholera. You have never touched it except to dust it with a cloth. It is your only link to a time when you were a child and the world was warm. You walk over to it. Your hands are shaking. You take it down. The wood is heavy and smooth. It feels like silk. You know that to burn this is to burn the last piece of your heart. But you look at Mary. You look at her blue lips. You do not hesitate. You take the heavy stone from the corner. You place the cross on the floor. You strike it. The sound of the wood splintering feels like a bone breaking in your own chest. You break the oak into thin strips. You find a single match in your pocket. It is your last one. You strike it against the stone. The sulfur smell is sharp and sudden. The flame is a tiny, fragile yellow bead. You hold your breath. You shield it with your cupped hands. You touch it to a scrap of the newspaper. The paper curls and blackens. A small orange tongue licks the oak. The wood is old and dry. It catches instantly. A bright, steady flame rises from the hearth. It is a different kind of fire. It is not the smoky, spitting fire of the pine crate. It is a pure, hot light. It smells of beeswax and old memories. You move Mary closer. You wrap her in the blanket and hold her against the stone. The heat from the oak is intense. It begins to pull the chill out of the air. You watch the wood burn. You see the shape of the cross disappearing into the coals. You feel a strange sense of relief. You have sacrificed the past to save the future. You watch the color return to Mary's cheeks. It is a faint, dusty pink. She opens her eyes and looks at the fire. She does not ask where the wood came from. She knows. She reaches out and takes your hand. Your fingers are covered in the dust of the oak. You sit there in the silence. You realize that the Victorian winter does not just test your body. It tests your soul. It asks you what you are willing to give up to keep a single heart beating. You hear a muffled sound from outside. It is the sound of shovels. You scramble to the window. You scrape the frost away. Below you, in the white abyss of the street, you see lanterns. You see men in heavy wool coats. They are digging a path. They are the neighborhood watch. They are the men of the East End coming for their own. You feel a surge of hope that is almost painful. You realize that the rich survive because they have walls, but the poor survive because they have each other. You watch them work. They move in a line, tossing the snow into high walls. They are creating a canyon of life through the desert of death. You turn back to the fire. The oak is nearly gone, but it did its job. The room is warm. Mary is breathing. You are still here. The fire sinks into a bed of glowing red jewels. You lean back against the wall. You are exhausted beyond words. You have fought the blizzard and you have won. You have lost your mother's cross, but you have kept your sister. You realize that survival is not about what you keep. It is about what you are willing to burn. You listen to the sound of the shovels getting closer. You know that soon the door will be cleared. Soon there will be bread. Soon there will be coal. You close your eyes and let the warmth of the embers wash over you. You are Thomas. You are a Victorian. You are a survivor. The shovels against the stone sound like the ticking of a great clock. Each scrape is a second closer to the world outside. You watch the final glow of the oak crucifix fade into a pale grey powder. The heat lingers in the bricks of the hearth. It feels like a ghost of a hug. You stand up and move to the door. You can hear voices now. They are muffled by the thick wall of snow, but they are human. They are shouting instructions. You hear the name of your street. You hear a man call out to see if anyone is alive in the lower rooms. You want to shout back, but your throat is a desert. You find a heavy metal spoon and bang it against the iron hinges of your door. The ringing sound is loud in the small room. It is your signal flare. The digging continues for what feels like hours. Your internal clock is broken. When you are starving and cold, time does not flow. It stretches and snaps. Finally, you hear a heavy thud against your door. The wood groans. The snow that was holding the frame tight has been cleared away. You pull the handle. The door swings open and a rush of freezing, fresh air hits you. It is so sharp it makes your teeth ache. Standing in the hallway is a man you recognize. It is Mr. Miller, the blacksmith from 3 streets over. He is covered in a layer of frost. His beard is a block of ice. He holds a lantern and a heavy iron spade. He looks at you and nods. He does not ask how you are. He can see it in the way your clothes hang off your bones. He reaches into a deep pocket of his leather apron and pulls out a hunk of dark rye bread. It is wrapped in a greasy cloth. He hands it to you. You feel the weight of it. It is heavy and real. You do not eat it. You turn back into the room and give it to Mary. She takes it with both hands. She bites into it with a desperation that is hard to watch. Mr. Miller tells you that the parish has opened a temporary station at the end of the lane. They have a boiler of pea soup and sacks of coal dust. He tells you the snow is 10 feet deep in some places. The city is paralyzed. No horses can move. No coal wagons can reach the yards. The only way to survive is to walk to the station. You help Mary to her feet. She is wobbly like a newborn calf. You wrap the thin blanket around her shoulders and tie it with a piece of string. You put on your thin coat. You feel the gap where your waistcoat used to be. The cold bites at your stomach instantly. You step out into the hallway. Other doors are opening now. The tenement is waking up from its frozen sleep. You see the woman with the kettle. She is leaning against her doorframe. She looks older than she did yesterday. Her eyes are hollow. You nod to her. She does not move. You realize she is waiting for someone who isn't coming. You lead Mary down the stairs. The air in the stairwell is even colder than your room. It is a chimney of ice. When you reach the street level, you gasp. The world you knew is gone. The narrow alley is now a canyon of white walls. The men have dug a path just wide enough for 2 people to pass. Above the walls, you can see the second-story windows of the houses. The sky is a flat, hard blue. The sun is out, but it is a cold sun. It reflects off the snow with a blinding glare. Your eyes sting. You hold Mary's hand tight. You follow the path. You pass a doorway where a dog lies frozen in a curl. You pass a window where a family is staring out with faces like masks. This is the Victorian winter in its rawest form. It is a silence that screams. The station at the end of the lane is a scene from a nightmare. There are hundreds of people. They are all grey and brown against the white snow. They are shivering in a long line that snakes around the corner. At the front, 2 men are ladling yellow soup into mismatched mugs and bowls. The smell of the peas and salt is so strong it makes you dizzy. You stand in line. You shuffle your feet to keep the blood moving. You see a gentleman in a top hat standing on a stone step. He is writing in a ledger. He is the overseer from the vestry. He looks at each person with a clinical eye. He is measuring their worthiness against the cost of the soup. When you reach the front, the man behind the boiler looks at you. He sees your bandaged hand. He sees Mary's pale face. He fills a tin mug to the brim. The steam rises into your face. It feels like a miracle. He hands you a small bag of breeze, the fine coal dust and scraps left at the bottom of the coal bins. It is not high quality, but it will burn if you mix it with a little water and make balls of it. You take the soup and the bag. You find a small patch of clear stone near a wall that has been shoveled. You and Mary share the soup. You take a sip, and then she takes a sip. It is thick and salty. It burns your throat in a way that feels like life returning. As you sit there, you see a carriage. It is not moving. It is stuck in a drift 100 yards away. The horses are being led away by men in blankets. The owner of the carriage, a man in a massive fur-lined cloak, is standing in the snow. He is shouting at the workers. He is waving a handful of banknotes. He wants them to dig his carriage out first. The men ignore him. His money is useless here. Gold cannot melt 10 feet of snow. The winter is a great leveler. In this moment, the man in the fur is just as trapped and just as cold as you are. He is learning what it means to be at the mercy of the sky. You feel a strange sense of satisfaction. It is a bitter, cold joy. For all his silk and all his stone walls, he is standing in the same slush as you. You finish the soup. The bottom of the mug is gritty with salt and bits of pea husk. You lick the rim. You feel a tiny spark of strength return to your limbs. You stand up and help Mary. You have the coal dust. You have the memory of the soup. You have to get back to the room before the sun goes down. The shadows are already getting long. In the Victorian winter, the afternoon is just a short bridge between two nights. You walk back through the canyon of snow. You see a group of children playing. They are making a fort out of the snow blocks. They are laughing. It is a sound that feels out of place. It is too bright, too happy. But it reminds you that life is stubborn. It finds a way to play even in the middle of a graveyard. You reach your tenement. You climb the stairs. The walk has exhausted Mary. She collapses onto the crate as soon as you enter the room. You do not rest. You take the bag of coal dust. You mix it with a little bit of the melted frost from the window. You form small, black balls. You set them in the hearth. You use a small sliver of the oak you saved, the very last piece of the cross. You light it. You place the coal balls on top. They take a long time to catch. They smoke and hiss. But eventually, a low blue flame begins to crawl over the black mounds. It is a slow, steady heat. It is not the bright joy of the oak or the frantic heat of the pine. It is a worker's fire. It is a fire that knows it has a long night ahead. You sit by it. You feel the weight of the day. You are Thomas. You have food in your belly and fuel in your grate. You have survived the day of the great dig. You are still breathing. The low, blue fire from the coal dust balls creates a strange, flickering light that dances across the damp walls. It is a slow burn, a stubborn resistance against the night. You sit in the quiet, listening to the drip of water, the heat from the station's soup, and the new fire has started something dangerous. The frost on the inside of the walls is beginning to weep. Thick drops of icy water run down the plaster, soaking into the floorboards. In a Victorian tenement, the thaw is often more terrifying than the freeze. When the ice melts, the rot wakes up. The smell of old mold and stagnant air begins to fill the room. You watch a dark stain spread across the ceiling. It looks like a reaching hand. Mary is asleep, her breathing finally deep and regular. The bread from Mr. Miller has given her body the fuel it needed to stop shivering. You look at your own hands. The bandage is filthy, stained with coal dust and the yellow grace of the soup. You carefully unwind the cloth. The cuts are puckered and white at the edges. The cold has kept the infection at bay, but now that the room is warming, you feel a throbbing heat in your palm. You know you must keep it clean. You take a cup of the melted frost water and hold it over the blue flames until it is lukewarm. You wash the wound. The sting is sharp, but it is a clean pain. You realize that to survive the winter, you must be your own doctor, your own engineer, and your own light. Your mind drifts to the geography of the city. London is a monster made of coal and stone. To the west, the air is clearer because the wind blows the soot toward the east end. In the great squares of Belgravia, the snow is being cleared by armies of paid servants. They use salt and sand to make the paths safe for silk slippers. There, the winter is a season of parties and thick velvet gowns. But here, the snow is a wall that locks you in. You think about the river of the dead. That is what the locals call the Thames when it fills with ice flows. The ice blocks the coal barges, and the price of warmth rises with every inch of frost. You are living in a giant machine that is designed to crush the poor, to keep the rich warm. You are a small, stubborn cog that refuses to break. You hear a heavy sound from the roof above. It is a sliding, rushing noise. Then, a massive thud shakes the entire building. The snow has slid off the pitched roof. It has likely blocked the entrance to the tenement again. You do not feel panic. You feel a strange, cold exhaustion. You realize that nature does not hate you. It simply does not know you are there. The snow falls on the rich man's palace, and the poor man's hovel with the same indifference. The only difference is the thickness of the walls. You look at the blue flames. They are getting smaller. The coal dust balls are turning into fragile white shells. You reach for the bag to make more, but your movements are slow. You realize that the real battle of the Victorian winter is the battle of the mind. It is easy to lie down and let the sleep take you. The cold makes you heavy. It makes your thoughts soft and blurry. You have to fight to stay sharp. You begin to count. You count the bricks in the hearth. You count the seconds between your breaths. You count the days since you last felt the sun on your bare skin. You realize it has been weeks. The world has been gray for so long that you have forgotten the color of a summer leaf. You try to picture a park in July. You try to remember the sound of bees and the smell of hot dust. But the memory is like a faded photograph. The edges are curled and the center is white. You hear a scratching at the door. It is not the sound of a human. It is small and frantic. You stand up, your knees cracking like frozen wood. You open the door. A small terrier, its fur matted with ice and filth, scurries inside. It is shivering so hard it can barely stand. It looks at you with eyes that are full of the same desperation you see in the mirror. It must have belonged to someone in the building. Perhaps someone who did not make it through the night. The dog moves toward the fire and collapses. You look at the animal. You have no food to spare. You have nothing but a little warmth. The dog tucks its nose under its tail. It looks like a ball of frozen mud. You sit back down. You find yourself reaching out to touch the dog's head. Its fur is wet and coarse. You feel the heat of the fire begin to dry the animal's coat. A faint steam rises from its back. You realize that in this room, there are now 3 hearts beating against the dark. It is a small victory, but it is yours. You feel a sense of kinship with the beast. You are both scavengers in a city that has run out of meat. You both know the value of a single spark. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the blue light burn into your eyelids. You are Thomas. You are the master of a dying fire and a stray dog. You are a Victorian survivor, and you are still standing. The hours of the deep night pass in a blur of blue and gray. The coal dust fire is a low-energy companion. It does not roar, but it does not quit. You spend the time making more coal balls, your hands turning permanently black from the soot. You don't mind. The blackness is a badge of work. It means you have the means to fight another hour. You look at the window. The moon must be out because a pale, ghostly light is filtering through the snow that covers the glass. It makes the room look like it is underwater. You feel like a diver in a sunken ship, waiting for the surface to clear. You wait for the morning. You wait for the sound of the shovels. You wait for the chance to prove, once again, that the winter cannot have you. The 5th morning of the great frost brings a new sound. It is not the wind or the shovel. It is the sound of the ice itself. You hear it groaning in the walls of the tenement. The moisture that seeped into the bricks during the brief thaw of the previous night has frozen again. Water expands when it turns to ice. It is a slow, silent explosion. You hear a sharp crack from the corner of the room. A long fissure opens in the plaster. It looks like a lightning bolt made of shadow. You realize that the building is being slowly torn apart by the cold. You look at the window. The snow has settled, but the glass is now covered in a layer of ice so thick you cannot see any light at all. You are living in a cave of frozen brick. You look at the coal dust balls. You have 3 left. They are small and fragile. You know you cannot go back to the station today. Your legs feel like they are made of glass. If you walk out into that wind again, you fear you will shatter. You look at Mary. She is sitting up. Her eyes are clearer, but her face is still the color of ash. She asks you if the river has frozen. You tell her you do not know. If the Thames is solid, the city is truly cut off. You think of the great frost fairs of the past. You remember stories of your grandfather walking on the river. They roasted oxen on the ice. They built shops and pubs on the frozen water. It sounds like a legend from a different world. To them, the ice was a playground. To you, it is a shroud. The small terrier you let in last night is still here. It is huddled against Mary's side. It provides a tiny bit of warmth. You realize that survival is a game of inches and degrees. You are counting every calorie. You are weighing every spark. You decide to search the room one last time. You are looking for anything that can be turned into heat. You move the heavy wooden crate. Underneath, you find a small pile of old newspapers and a discarded wool sock. It is not much, but in the Victorian winter, a wool sock is a treasure. You do not burn it. You give it to Mary to wrap around her neck. You take the newspapers and begin to roll them into tight logs. You soak them in a little bit of the remaining coal dust. This is your invention. It is a poor man's fuel. You spend the next few hours in a state of rhythmic labor. You roll the paper. You press the coal dust. Your hands are no longer human. They are black claws. You feel a strange sense of pride. The rich have their servants to tend the hearth. They have their coal merchants to deliver the heat. You have only your wits. You are the architect of your own endurance. You think about the winter of 1814. That was the last time the river truly froze. People died in their beds by the thousands. The city became a silent graveyard. You wonder if 1860 will be remembered the same way. You wonder if anyone will remember you. You are just one of the millions of nameless souls living in the smoke. The hunger is no longer a sharp pain. It has become a dull, heavy companion. It is a weight in your gut that makes you feel slow. You find a small bit of tallow in a tin. It was meant for a candle, but you decide to use it for food. You melt it in the spoon over the blue flame. You mix it with a few crumbs of the rye bread. You give it to Mary. She swallows it without a word. The fat will give her heart enough energy to keep beating for a few more hours. You do not take any for yourself. You are the fire keeper. You feed the fire before you feed yourself. You look at the blue flames. They are steady. They are small. They are your only friends in the world. You hear a noise from the hallway. It is a heavy, rhythmic thumping. It is not a shovel. It is the sound of a drum. You crawl to the door and pull it open. The hallway is filled with a thick, yellow fog. You see a group of men from the Salvation Army. They are wearing heavy red coats. One of them is carrying a large brass bell. They are moving from door to door. They are not carrying gold. They are carrying hope. They have a large pot of hot tea and a basket of thick crusts of bread. They reach your door. The man with the bell looks at you. He sees the soot on your face. He sees the bandage on your hand. He hands you a tin mug of tea. It is hot and sweet. The sugar is a shock to your system. It feels like a lightning bolt of energy hitting your blood. He gives you 2 large pieces of bread. He tells you that the sun will be stronger tomorrow. He tells you that the ice on the river is starting to crack. He tells you to hold on. You take the bread and the tea back into the room. You feel a surge of emotion that you have been holding back for days. You are not alone. Even in the middle of the frozen city, there are people who care. You share the bread with Mary and the dog. The tea warms your chest. You feel the life returning to your fingers. You look at the crack in the wall. It is still there, but it no longer looks like a threat. It looks like a mark of survival. You are Thomas. You have survived the 10th night. You are a Victorian, and you are still here. The tea leaves a warm glow in your center. You sit by the fire and watch the paper logs burn. They create a soft, golden light that is much warmer than the blue coal dust. You feel a sense of peace. You realize that the winter is not your enemy. It is just a season. Your enemy is the system that leaves you with nothing. But for tonight, you have beaten the system. You have tea in your belly and a fire in your grate. You have your sister and a small dog. You have everything you need. You close your eyes and listen to the sound of the bell fading into the distance. You are a survivor of the London frost. You are ready for the morning. The sixth morning reveals a shift in the light. The ice on the window is no longer a solid white wall. It has become a dull, wet grey. You press your forehead against the glass. You feel the cold, but it is a different kind of cold. It is a damp, heavy chill. You look at the hearth. Your paper logs and coal balls have burned down to a fine, dark silt. You have used every scrap of fuel you managed to find or create. You are down to the very last of your resources. You look at the small dog. It is wagging its tail, a soft thumping sound against the floor. It is a sound of life. It is a sound of hope. You realize that you have made it through the worst of the freeze. But the danger is not over. The thaw brings the risk of floods and the return of the damp fever. You stand up and feel the weight of your own body. You have lost a lot of flesh over the last week. Your clothes hang loose. Your belt is pulled to the final hole. You look at Mary. She is standing at the window, scraping at the slush with a spoon. She looks at you and points. Down in the street, the water is beginning to flow. It is a black, freezing sludge made of melted snow and city filth. It is carving channels through the high white walls. You hear the sound of a distant whistle. It is a steam engine. The trains are moving again. The world is opening up. You feel a sudden, sharp urge to get out. You want to see the sky. You want to breathe air that does not smell of smoke and unwashed wool. You wrap your feet in the burlap again. You tie the knots tight. You tell Mary to stay by the window and watch for the sun. You step out into the hallway. The smell of the tenement is overwhelming now. The heat from the people inside has turned the melting ice into a thick, humid fog. You pass the door of the blacksmith. He is standing in the hall, cleaning his shovel. He looks at you and gives a small, tired smile. He tells you the markets are opening in the square. He says the fishmongers have brought in a catch from the coast. You feel your mouth water at the thought of salt and sea. You head down the stairs, your feet splashing in the puddles on the landings. The street is a chaos of water and ice. You have to step carefully to avoid falling into the deep channels of slush. You reach the main road and see a sight that makes you stop. A massive wagon, pulled by 4 heavy horses, is moving through the slush. It is loaded with coal. Real, hard, black anthracite coal. The sound of the wheels grinding against the stones is the most beautiful thing you have ever heard. You see people running alongside the wagon, holding out their hats and their aprons. The driver is a man with a red face and a thick wool hat. He is shouting at the horses. He is not stopping. He is headed for the depots of the wealthy. But every time the wagon hits a bump, a few small lumps of coal bounce off the top. You join the crowd. You are no longer a man of thought. You are a man of action. You watch the wagon. You see a lump the size of a fist fly into the air. You dive for it. You hit the wet, freezing slush with your knees. You feel the water soak into your trousers, but your hand closes over the coal. It is cold and jagged. It is perfect. You stand up and move to the side. You wait for the next bump. You manage to gather 5 good pieces of coal before the wagon disappears around the corner. You tuck them into your pockets. They feel like heavy jewels. You are rich. You have the means to make a real fire. You have the means to dry the room. You walk toward the market square. The air is filled with the shouting of vendors. They are selling whatever they can salvage from the storm. You see a man selling old cabbages that have been frozen and thawed. They are limp and grey, but they are food. You use the last of your strength to find a job. You see a merchant struggling to move a heavy barrel of salted herrings. You offer to help. You use your shoulders. You use your legs. You ignore the pain in your hand. The merchant gives you 3 herrings and a small handful of salt. You carry your prizes back through the melting streets. You feel a sense of triumph. You have beaten the winter at its own game. You reach the tenement and climb the stairs. You are wet to the bone, but you are warm on the inside. You open the door and show Mary the coal and the fish. Her eyes go wide. You don't waste any time. You build the fire. This is not a blue flickering flame of dust. This is a roaring, orange fire of real coal. The heat hits the room like a physical wave. You put the herrings on a piece of tin and set them over the heat. The smell of salt and fat fills the room. It is a rich, intoxicating scent. You and Mary eat the fish with your fingers. You lick the salt from your skin. You feel the strength returning to your blood. You look at the fire and you know that you have won. The sun finally breaks through the grey clouds. A single beam of yellow light hits the floorboards. It is the first time you have seen the sun in a week. It looks like a bar of gold. You watch the dust motes dancing in the light. You realize that the Victorian winter is a test of iron. It breaks those who are brittle. It shapes those who are strong. You are Thomas. You have been through the fire and the frost. You have kept your sister alive. You have shared your warmth. You have kept your dignity. You sit by the roaring fire and let the sun hit your face. You are a survivor. You are ready for the spring. The seventh day of the thaw brings a different kind of music to the East End. It is the sound of 1,000 drips. The ice that held the city in a silent grip is now a weeping memory. You sit by your coal fire, watching the steam rise from your wet trousers. The heat is a solid thing now, a wall of comfort that pushes back the damp. You look at the walls of the room. The long fissure in the plaster has stopped growing, but the edges are stained with the brown history of the soot. You realize that you are breathing easier. The air is heavy and wet, but it no longer feels like a blade. You watch Mary as she brushes the small terrier. The dog is clean now, its fur a sandy color. It looks like it belongs in a home. You realize that you have created a home out of a tomb. The world outside is waking up with a roar. You hear the shouts of the mudlarks down by the river. They are the children of the frost, the ones who scavenge the banks of the Thames for scraps of metal and coal. If they are out, it means the ice on the river is breaking. You decide to go down to the water. You need to see the end of the winter with your own eyes. You tell Mary to keep the fire low. You don't want to waste the jewels you gathered from the wagon. You step out into the street. The canyon of snow is collapsing. The walls are now grey mounds of slush. The cobbles are visible in patches, looking like the skin of an old elephant. You walk toward the Thames. The air smells of salt, mud, and the sharp tang of the city's waste. You reach the London Bridge. You lean over the stone parapet and gasp. The river is a churning mass of white and black. Huge sheets of ice, some as large as houses, are grinding against each other. They sound like thunder. They hit the stone piers of the bridge with a force that makes the ground tremble. You see a small boat trapped between two floes. It is being crushed like a walnut shell. You realize that even as the winter leaves, it shows its teeth. The power of the ice is a reminder of how small you are. But you are still standing on the bridge. You are the observer, not the victim. You see a crowd gathered near the stairs leading down to the water. They are watching a group of men in heavy leather aprons. These are the ice breakers. They use long iron poles to push the floes away from the embankments. They are working in a rhythm, a dance of muscle and metal. You watch them for a long time. You see a man fall into the water. He is pulled out instantly by his comrades. They don't speak. They don't cheer. They just keep working. This is the Victorian way. You do the work because the work must be done. You feel a deep sense of respect for these men. They are the ones who make the city move again. They are the ones who bring the coal ships back to the docks. You turn away from the river and walk back through the markets. The prices are starting to fall. You see a man selling oranges from a wooden crate. They look like small suns. You have 1 copper coin left in your pocket. It is the very last of your wealth. You look at the oranges. You think of the taste of summer. You buy one. You carry it in your hand like a golden orb. The smell of the peel is so strong it makes your head light. You reach your tenement. You climb the stairs for what feels like the 1000th time. You are tired, but it is a good tiredness. It is the exhaustion of a runner who has seen the finish line. You enter the room and place the orange on the table. Mary looks at it as if it is a miracle. You peel it slowly. You give her the first segment. The juice is sweet and sharp. It tastes of light. It tastes of everything the winter tried to take from you. You eat a segment yourself. You feel the vitamin, rich liquid moving through your body. You realize that you have survived the most dangerous week of your life. You have faced the hunger, the cold, and the silence. You have seen the rich in their carriages and the poor in their gutters. You know the truth now. The winter is a mirror. It shows you who you really are. You are Thomas. You are a man who breaks his mother's cross to save his sister. You are a man who steals wood to keep a dog warm. You are a man who survives. The fire is a glowing bed of red embers. You sit in the chair and watch the light fade from the sky. The evening is long and purple. The stars are starting to come out. They look like pinpricks in a dark velvet curtain. You are not afraid of the night anymore. You know the sun will come back. You know the coal will come back. You know the city will breathe again. You close your eyes and listen to the sound of Mary breathing. You listen to the soft snoring of the dog. You are at peace. You have won the war of the frost. You are a Victorian, and you are still here. The 8th morning is different. The air does not bite, it clings. The heavy frost has turned into a thick, low, hanging mist that smells of damp earth and river salt. You stand at the window of your small room and watch the world return to life. The high walls of snow have slumped into grey, porous mounds. You see the first horse-drawn cart struggle down the lane, its wheels splashing through deep puddles of slush. The sound of the hooves on the cobbles is rhythmic and steady. It is the heartbeat of London starting up again. You look at the grate. The last of the coal from the wagon is a pile of white ash. You do not feel the urge to hunt for more. The room is not warm, but it is no longer a refrigerator. The ice on the inside of the walls has vanished, leaving only a dark, damp stain that tells the story of your struggle. You look at Mary. She is standing by the door, wrapped in her thin shawl. She looks stronger. The color in her face is no longer a sickly pink from the fire. It is a natural glow. She is holding the small terrier in her arms. The dog is quiet, its head resting on her shoulder. You realize that you cannot keep the animal. You have no food to give it, and the owner might be searching the streets now that the paths are clear. You feel a pang of sadness, but you also feel a sense of completion. You saved a life that was smaller than your own. You proved that even in the most brutal winter, there is room for mercy. You take a deep breath. The air is heavy with the scent of coal smoke and wet brick, but it is the air of a city that has survived. You decide to take one final walk before you return to the docks to find work. You walk toward the West End. You want to see the transition. You want to see how the other half finished their winter. As you move away from the East End, the streets become wider and cleaner. The slush has been swept away by armies of men in yellow waistcoats. The shop windows are gleaming. You see a window filled with winter coats made of thick, heavy wool with velvet collars. You see a display of leather boots that look like they could walk through an ocean of ice without letting in a drop of water. You look at your own burlap, wrapped feet. You feel no envy. You feel a strange sense of superiority. The people who wear those coats did not fight the winter. They hid from it. You looked the frost in the eye and you did not blink. You reach a large square where a row of grand townhouses stands. A massive carriage is parked in front of one. Servants are carrying heavy trunks packed with furs and silks. The wealthy are leaving for the countryside, or perhaps for the warmer air of the coast. You see a young woman in a green silk dress step out of the house. She holds a muff of white rabbit fur to her face. She looks at the grey sky with a small frown of annoyance. To her, the week of ice was a nuisance. It was a delay in her social calendar. She has no idea that a few miles away, men were breaking their furniture to keep their sisters from turning to stone. She does not know about the girl with the copper kettle or the man who fell at the docks. You realize that the Victorian winter is two different seasons happening in the same city. For some, it is a backdrop. For you, it was a war. You turn back toward your own neighborhood. You feel a sense of belonging that you never felt before. You are part of the hidden London. You are part of the foundation that keeps the city standing while the silk and the stone sit on top. You reach your tenement and see the blacksmith, Mr. Miller, sitting on his doorstep. He is smoking a clay pipe. The blue smoke rises in a straight line in the still air. He nods to you. He asks if you are heading back to the wharf tomorrow. You tell him you are. He tells you the grain ships are lined up 3 deep in the pool of London. There will be plenty of tickets. You feel a sense of relief. You have a future. It is a hard future, filled with heavy sacks and cold winds, but it is yours. You enter your room. Mary has set the table with the last of the bread and a small jar of jam she found in the back of the cupboard. The sun is setting, casting long, orange shadows across the floor. You sit down together. You talk about the spring. You talk about walking to the park to see the first green shoots of the crocuses. You talk about a time when the fire will be a choice, not a necessity. You realize that you have changed. You are no longer just a worker. You are a survivor. You have learned that your strength is not in your muscles, but in your will. You have learned that a single lump of coal can be more valuable than a mountain of gold if it is shared with love. The night falls, but it is a soft night. The temperature stays above freezing. You hear the rain start to fall. It is a gentle, persistent patter against the glass. It is the final nail in the coffin of the frost. The rain will wash away the grey slush and the black soot. It will clean the streets for the new season. You lie down on your thin mattress and pull the blanket up. You are not shivering. You are not listening for the wind. You are listening to the rain. You are Thomas. You have lived through the rich versus poor Victorian winter of 1860. You are a witness to the endurance of the human spirit. You close your eyes and fall into a deep, dreamless sleep. The winter is over. Sleep now, friend. The fire has burned low, and the story has reached its end. You have walked the frozen streets and felt the warmth of a hard-won hearth. I hope the journey has settled your mind and calmed your spirit. May your own blankets be thick and your home be full of peace tonight. In our next video, we will travel to the quiet, snowy woods of the 1880s to follow a lone mail carrier on his longest journey through a mountain pass. It is a story of silence, stars, and the letters that keep a community together. As a small gift for staying with me, you can find a link to a free high-resolution digital print of the Victorian London frost in the description below. It is my way of saying thank you for being part of our quiet community. Rest well, sleep deep. I will see you in the next story.